How much would you trade to preserve your youth $1 million or your own face? Some legends have it all, yet lose themselves in a hopeless battle against time. The 9 names about to appear aren't just tales of cosmetic failure. They are shocking warnings about the trap called perfection. Is the spotlight worth it when the person staring back at you in the mirror becomes a stranger? Pause for a moment and interact with us. Press 1. If you're stunned by these fates, press 0. If you believe natural beauty is unbeatable, don't forget to like and subscribe because the truth about the final figure will leave you shivering. Let's begin. The Duchess of Alba was not only the holder of more noble titles than anyone else in the world, but also a free spirit, a symbol of rebellion against the rigid standards of blue blood. Yet behind the lavish palaces and priceless art collections, Cayetana embarked on a quiet but fierce battle, the fight against the decay of nature. Rather than accepting wrinkles as witnesses to a brilliant life, she chose to freeze time through tireless interventions. Each quest for youth came at the cost of natural, delicate features being replaced by artificial interventions. Facial muscles meant to move with the rhythm of emotion gradually became frozen and unfamiliar. This is not merely a story about appearance, it is a tragedy of resistance. She tried to preserve the image of a young woman in the mirror, yet ironically, those very efforts created an ever-widening gap between her real self and the illusion of the past. What can we learn from her journey? It is a lesson about the limits of perfection. When self-esteem is weighed against extreme beauty standards, it's easy to become disconnected from oneself. Cayetana lived an extraordinarily vibrant life, yet her excessive physical transformations sometimes led the public to overlook her intelligence and free-spirited soul, focusing only on the physical alterations. It is a sharp reminder true beauty is like a classic work of art. Its value lies in its weathered textures and the marks of time, not in a smooth surface devoid of soul. The pursuit of an ageless face can inadvertently strip away the right to age with dignity. If Kenny Rogers' music was a gentle river flowing through generations with sincerity and simplicity, his quest for physical perfection was a turbulent storm. Kenny naturally had a warm, expressive face, where crow's feet at the corners of his eyes were not just signs of aging, but notes marking the highs and lows of a brilliant artist's life. Yet under the suffocating pressure of stage lights and an obsession with an ever-youthful image, he made a decision he would later regret trying to edit the lines drawn by time. Cosmetic interventions inadvertently created a strange replica of himself. His eyes, once filled with narrative depth and empathy, became stiff, losing the storyteller's essence they once held. This is a clear example of losing one's identity in the pursuit of preserving an image. In the entertainment world, where youth is often worshipped as a form of power, Kenny Rogers unintentionally fell into the whirlwind of modernizing a look that was already iconic. This change was not merely physical, it created a spiritual distance between the artist and his fans, those who loved him for his rugged, authentic, and grounded persona. The lesson Kenny Rogers leaves us is not one of criticism, but a reflection on the courage to age gracefully. He had the bravery to admit his mistakes, and it was this honesty that became his most beautiful quality in his later years. We realize that true beauty, especially for an artist, does not lie in flawless skin, but in the harmony between inner self and outward appearance. When we try to erase the memories etched on our faces, we inadvertently blur the story of our lives. His story reminds us to cherish every wrinkle, for they are invisible legacies that no technology can ever replicate better than nature itself. If Kenny Rogers' story is a gentleman's regret for this woman, it is an entire maze with no way out. Joan van Ark was once the muse of the small screen, a symbol of purity and radiance, with deep blue eyes that could captivate any audience. Yet, in the ruthless flow of Hollywood, where beauty is sometimes treated as the expiration date of a career, she entered a maze with no escape, the maze of reinventing her appearance. Joan's story is not just about surgeries. It is about the disappearance of a natural self under the weight of illusory standards. The overuse of cosmetic treatments transformed her once expressive face into a strangely silent entity. The soft, flexible features that once conveyed the subtlest emotions of an actor gradually gave way to a smooth but lifeless surface. The public's gaze shifted from admiration of her talent to curiosity about her changing appearance, and that became the greatest tragedy for an artist. Joan seemed to have inadvertently built an invisible wall between herself and the world, a mask created to preserve youth but ultimately imprisoning the brilliant soul within. Through the lens of Joan van Ark, we see a valuable lesson about the balance between preservation and destruction. Confidence should not be built on the foundation of flawless perfection, for such a foundation is always shaken by time. When we become too obsessed with fixing what is natural, we risk losing the unique essence that gives each person their singular value. Her story reminds us that the pinnacle of aesthetics is not eternal youth, but the harmony between inner serenity and outward authenticity. Clinging too tightly to the past can make us miss the beauty of maturity and the depth of soul that only age can bestow. In the shadow of the dazzling Jackson family legacy, LaToya was more than just an artist. She was a soul striving to assert her independent existence. Yet the journey to find herself led her down a path filled with physical transformations. Each alteration to her face was not merely a medical procedure, but seemed like an attempt to rewrite her destiny. She used her own body as a canvas to experiment with new beauty standards, yet ironically, those very strokes sometimes went too far, overshadowing her natural identity. LaToya's transformations carry a symbolic weight, reflecting the conflict between inner self and external pressures. As the features of her face became sharper and less natural, questions arose: was this personal freedom, or the result of invisible psychological pressures from a tumultuous environment? Repeated interventions created an appearance that was highly iconic, yet inadvertently stripped away the softness of emotional expression. This serves as a stark example of how, when a person attempts to sculpt themselves to reach an unattainable ideal, they risk becoming a being disconnected from both their past and their present self. The message from LaToya Jackson's life is a reflection on the value of authenticity. In a world that constantly urges us to change in pursuit of perfection, preserving our inherited traits and personal marks becomes an act of courage. Her story reminds us that beauty is not a fixed destination, attainable through physical alteration, but a harmony between embracing one's origins and personal growth. When we become too focused on chasing artificial ideals, we easily forget that a person's greatest allure lies in an authenticity that cannot be replicated. LaToya Jackson, a soul yearning for freedom or a victim of her own efforts to restructure herself. Has she truly found herself, or is she lost in an unfinished sketch? The choice is yours. Press 2. If you empathize with her struggle to assert her identity. Press 5. If you believe that authenticity is true power. Like and subscribe now. The secret of the next figure is even more shocking and controversial. Lisa Rinna has never been a fading name. She entered the entertainment world with radiant confidence and a sharp, vibrant face. Yet in a moment swept up by the wave of emerging beauty standards, she made a decision that would change her life completely, experimenting with artificial fullness. This was not just a change in appearance, but the beginning of a decades-long journey where she had to learn to live with the unintended consequences of her own choices. Her lips, once the hallmark of Lisa's signature allure, became a victim of an excessive ambition for perfection. Instead of enhancing her sensuality as intended, the intervention resulted in an unnatural structure, sometimes distorting both her smile and her ability to convey genuine emotion on camera. This serves as a vivid example of the materialization of beauty, where we treat our bodies as objects to upgrade at will, forgetting that every intervention leaves a lasting mark on natural form. Lisa faced public scrutiny for years, turning her story into a cautionary tale about chasing fleeting beauty trends without thoughtful consideration. However, the greatest lesson from Lisa Rinna lies in her courage to face the truth. She is one of the few stars willing to openly admit her regrets and take steps to reverse past mistakes, striving to restore her appearance to the most harmonious state possible. Her journey reminds us that beauty is not a fixed formula, and perfection does not reside in size or shape. It is a lesson in awareness against societal pressures. We need to learn to listen to ourselves rather than the noise of external trends. True confidence blossoms when we appreciate what is natural and have the courage to correct our mistakes rather than allowing those mistakes to define our entire worth. Goldie Hawn has long been seen as a symbol of optimism, a radiant ray of sunshine with a free spirit and an ever-present smile. Audiences love her not only for her talent, but also for the abundant life energy that shines through her expressive eyes and emotive face. Yet when faced with the specter of aging in the harsh environment of Hollywood, even a carefree soul like Goldie experienced moments of hesitation in the face of the lure of artificial youth. This journey placed her in a deeply reflective position. How does one preserve a smile when the features of the face begin to slip beyond control? Efforts to maintain youth inadvertently created the opposite effect, causing her naturally expressive face to sometimes appear overloaded by fillers. The natural sunlight in Goldie's presence was at times overshadowed by swelling and overly rigid structures. This is a clear example of the conflict between spirit and matter. While her soul remained vibrant and eager to express itself, her outward appearance was frozen by physical interventions, creating a dissonance in body language. Her story reflects a universal human fear, the fear that if we do not change to keep up with the times, we will be forgotten. Beyond the changes in appearance, Goldie Hawn's lesson is about prioritizing mental well-being. She has shown that even if one's looks sometimes falter due to poor choices, optimism and kindness remain the most powerful cosmetics. We learn that we should not let industry standards of beauty overshadow our true essence. True beauty is like a flower; it shines at its peak, and even as it naturally fades. Attempting to preserve it with chemicals can unintentionally strip away the fragrance of the soul. Goldie Hawn reminds us to cherish the radiance that comes from within, for it is the one thing that time or failed procedures can never take away. The Bogdanov brothers were not only renowned physicists and iconic sci-fi TV hosts, they were also the architects of their own appearance. With minds always reaching toward the mysteries of the universe, Igor and Grichka seemed to view their faces as entities to be evolved to match the transcendent ideas they pursued. However, this journey turned them into prisoners of an extreme aesthetic ideal, where the line between reality and illusion, between beauty and distortion, was completely blurred. Their transformations did not occur in isolation, but unfolded in a haunting parallel progression. As their cheekbones began to jut unnaturally high and their chins sharpened into bizarre points, The public no longer saw the sophisticated scientists, but rather creatures stepping out of the very sci-fi films they had once hosted. This serves as a striking example of projecting beliefs onto the body. They seem to attempt to deny the limits of human biology in pursuit of a state as eternal and rigid as diamond. Yet ironically, this very effort to become extraordinary caused them to lose the most natural connection with others, the ability to express human emotions through soft, subtle features. The lesson from the Bogdanov brothers' lives is a meditation on humility before nature. No matter how wise or wealthy we are attempting to restructure ourselves according to unrealistic ideals often leads to aesthetic isolation. The beauty of knowledge alone is enough to make a person immortal in the public's eyes, and trying to materialize that immortality onto one's face usually only creates silent tragedies. The Bogdanov brothers passed away together, leaving behind a controversial scientific legacy and a stark reminder: when we chase perfection beyond natural limits, we risk becoming strangers in our own soul's home. The balance between intellect and acceptance of our natural selves is the key to keeping each life a harmonious composition. 9 people, 9 destinies, yet one shared lesson. When we try to fix nature, we risk losing ourselves. Glamour can be recreated, but the soul in the eyes cannot. These faces are not just cases of cosmetic failure. They are unfinished works born from the fear of being forgotten. So, is perfection really worth it if it turns you into a stranger in your own reflection? If you had to choose between eternal artificial beauty and aging with pride, which would you pick? Leave a word representing your choice in the comments below. Can you spot the 10th figure caught in this cycle that we haven't mentioned yet? Share your thoughts in the comments. Be the original version of yourself, not a perfect copy. Thank you for watching, and see you next time for more shocking truths.